To my students who I'm not for sure where you are in this world, here is the video lecture. I'm not for sure if I'm going to be able to do a video lecture every day because I have so much material to cover. So I do want to try to get a little bit of a lecture today for you. Always keep in mind that on Blackboard, always look at the announcement. You will know that there is going to be a quiz coming up in the near future, that you are allowed to use your notes. So don't be surprised if we don't start doing more from the book, but you're familiar with the book. So since I'm not for sure where I left off in both classes, I marked down that Teddy Roosevelt was the organizer of the Rough Riders. Leonard Wood was the commander. It made Roosevelt very famous. But if you want to give credit to where credit belongs, it should be to the 10th Negro Cavalry. Those were the men that, as Roosevelt and them are going up San Juan Hill, it's the 10th Negro Cavalry that is literally taking the bullets. So I just kind of wanted you to go back and look at that there. So as you can tell, there's old Teddy Roosevelt right there. And notice I don't see in this picture anyone from the 10th Negro Cavalry there. So it shouldn't surprise you there. So let's take 1898. It's the Paris Peace Treaty. And it's funny because in the Paris Peace Treaty, well, here's what it is. First of all, Spain will surrender Cuba. Okay? What I find interesting about this is that I will use a student from my 9 o'clock class, my old buddy Adam and Owen, and then in my 11 o'clock class, I've got Caitlin there, and then over at Wellington there. If somebody beats you up or you fight somebody and you win that fight, you don't necessarily pay that person that you beat up. But that's kind of what happens with the Paris Peace Treaty, because Spain gave up Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Now, here's the funny part about this. We won this war, okay? It's the shortest war in history. We won it, and we got Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. And then we turned around and we did that right there. We paid Spain $20 million for their territory. Understand that this is political. We're showing them that we're not this big bad country that we can beat you up and take your property without compensating you for it. We did that in the Mexican-American War as well. So, yeah, that just goes to show you that we're not as mean as the Philippines people thought we were. Well, so let's take the Platt Amendment, okay? Remember, the Teller Amendment guaranteed the independence of Cuba. The Platt Amendment basically is contradicting the Teller Amendment. Notice under the Platt Amendment, Cuba can make no treaties with a foreign power if that means their independence is not guaranteed. All right, under the Platt Amendment, we also added that if there's an internal problem, In other words, if there's a civil war among the different groups in Cuba, Cuba had to allow American forces to intervene in the island's trouble. Now, the third part to this is still part of the United States today on number 3. Number 3, we still have this right here, Guantanamo Bay, or you know it in modern terms as Gitmo. Guantanamo Bay, we still have today, and we use this place to, we've got about 10 prisoners there that we have captured on the war on terrorism since 9/11. And it's expensive, but we still have that as I speak to you today on March 19th. All right, so we thought that everything was going to be fine in this new territory called the Philippines. So let me change the topic from Cuba to the Philippines. Here we're going to have an individual that I would compare to the late Osama bin Laden. And this is the guy, Emilio Aguinaldo, leader of the resistance against Spain and now the United States. You can actually say he's a jungle rat, because he is very good at fighting in the jungle. So when Spain, he was a pain in their butt, he's now a pain in our butt. So look what we did. For 7 years, it took 70,000 American troops to hunt Aguinaldo down at a cost of $175 million. On top of everything else, we now have American soldiers in the Philippines, and by 1905, he was captured. And of course, he was the one that told his fighters, lay down your weapons. Lay down the weapons there. Okay, now, there is Emilio Aguinaldo. And of course, we're going to look at now the number of Americans that died hunting Emilio Aguinaldo. 4,000 Americans died hunting Emilio Aguinaldo. Not only did you see 4,000 Americans died, but you also saw 20,000 Filipino people were dead because of Aguinaldo. Those who were fighting with the United States, those who were not fighting with the United States. And so we now have the Philippines from the time the war was over till 1946. And in 1946, the United States turned over the Philippines to the Filipino people. And the first governor of the Philippines was a future American president by the name of William Howard Taft. So that's how long we governed the Philippines. Well, now that this is over, we're stronger militarily, and we're out of that depression, the panic that happened in 1896. And so it's time for the 1900 presidential election. Listen carefully, because on the next quiz, which will be probably quiz 6, if I'm not mistaken, there because we've already had quiz 5 that you'll be doing next week. So listen very carefully. So McKinley decided he was going to seek a second term. And the party elders wanted Theodore Roosevelt on the ticket. Here's why. The Republicans wanted him as a vice presidential candidate because of this. Pita. Pain in the ace. You'll get my drift there. Because if you're vice president, you are basically don't have much to do. You're mainly the funeral guy. So the party elders, get him out of the way. We won't have to mess with him. Well, guess who's back like a Freddy Krueger movie? William Jennings Bryan. So 1900, McKinley gets a second term. And then things start to change with what happens next. There's the campaign poster, Prosperity, McKinley and Roosevelt. Well, McKinley, right here, is in Buffalo, New York, at the Pan American Exposition, and he's given a speech, as you can tell. Well, what happens next is that he left giving a speech, and he went to shake hands with the people. Well, while he's shaking hands, this man right there, Leon Czolgosz. Now, Leon Czolgosz has bought a pistol, and he has his hand wrapped up like he had cut it or like it was hurt. And so kind of look at where I usually lecture from in the front of the room in front of the PowerPoint slides there, that I'm William McKinley. And Leon Czolgosz is at the back door. And so as he's walking towards me, he's unwrapping his hand. And as he gets closer, he shoots me. The first shot hit a button. The second shot penetrated my abdomen. And then the security detail, and we did have Secret Service, but they really weren't protecting the presidents like they do today. And so when the security detail jumped on Czolgosz, McKinley, who had been shot in the stomach, said, "Go easy on him, boys." Well, McKinley's rushed to the hospital, where he will die a week later. And as you can tell, there's the funeral train of William McKinley. What really killed him, if that had happened today, poor medical practices. He got gangrene, got blood poisoning. So guess what? Teddy Roosevelt is now the president of the United States. And one of the party elders, one of the party bigwigs said, "That damn cowboy is president." So we now get president number 26, Theodore Roosevelt there. Well, what's interesting about Czolgosz is that you can tell this is the chair, that's not him. He was electrocuted in a chair like this. Is this one similar? After he was pronounced dead. It was quite interesting because they right after that, they poured sulfuric acid on his body. And the reason why they did that, so the body could decompose faster. And today, Leon Shogaz's bones are in a drawer, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure it's in the Smithsonian Institute there. So, President Theodore Roosevelt, and I don't say that very often, but I really like him as a Republican president. He is one of the guys that at the time was physically fit. He was very energetic. He liked to hunt. I'm telling you, he will be turning over in his grave today when he sees about how, you know, the party of Roosevelt's not really into global warming. So let's look at Roosevelt's foreign policy. First of all, in Asia, it's open door. And when I talk about Asia, I'm only talking about China, okay? So in Asia, it's open door policy. In Latin America, well, this is the part I like about Roosevelt. In Latin America, it's the Roosevelt Corollary, which basically says only the United States will intervene in Latin America affairs. So, there's a quote that works very well with him. Speak softly, carry a big stick, and you will go far someday. I love that quote, and don't be surprised if you won't see that on a quiz in the near future. Be quiz 6. It means we will ask. If we don't get it, well, then we'll carry a big stick, which means military. All right. So in Roosevelt's administration, he kept on this guy, John Hay, who's Secretary of State. This picture from Harper's Weekly says it all. Is that the United States is in front and we're going to hold everybody back. And this is China, as you can tell. And this part, I'm not going to worry about it there. But the countries that are actively in China are the countries that you're looking at right there. Germany, France, Great Britain, and Russia. They're all making lots of money in China. United States is not there. We want to trade in China. So the United States sends a letter to those countries there. And remember, they're not going to turn us down because we're the ones that said, oh, let me rephrase that. We're the ones that just won the Spanish-American War. So we send it to China and we send it to these countries. They let us in. And then that works. So the open door policy is in place now. Well, look at this. We're now involved, and I'm not going to be testing on this part when it became in effect. What I like to quiz on is this. You've got a group of patriotic Chinese that are not liking foreigners. So these patriotic Chinese are not liking foreigners, so they are the driving force behind the Boxer Rebellion. The Boxers were a Chinese secret society. Well, the Boxer Rebellion was crushed thanks to the United States and the other countries that helped crush it. We sued China for lost trade. We got $30 million from them, and so did the others. And this is what a boxer looks like. And this is the lady that was in the Boxer Rebellion. So we will, we're going to stop right there. And hopefully I will be able to, if I get this worked out, I'll be able to do this again. If not, well, I'll stay in touch with Blackboard, okay? Have a good day.